Hi, guys. Good afternoon, and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host, Eddie, and in today's video, I will be discussing what I thought of the brand new limited series from BBC and Netflix, which dropped on Netflix earlier today. Dracula. That's right, the 3 episode event series is now streaming on Netflix. I just finished binging all of it. Woo, that was a lot of vampire carnage, that's for sure. Now, before I get into all the details and spoilers, of course, please be warned, this is basically a whole mini-series review. I'll be discussing everything, or not everything, but all like some of the juicy details and whatnot and spoilers. So if you're in the middle of watching this, or if you haven't started watching Dracula yet, do not keep watching or listening to this particular video, as I will be discussing spoilers, key scenes, character details, and all that jazz. So spoilers are basically from here on out starting now. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I had some expectations as to what it would be. I did not see, nor did I expect that twist ending at the end of the second episode where once he emerged from the water, he was now in the 21st century. That was a real shocker, but I also loved and thought it was hilarious how he was adjusting to the 21st century. Like, that shit was gold. By the way, Claes Bang, if that's how you say his name, did an excellent job as Dracula, as did the lady who played Sister Agatha / Van Helsing, Dolly Wells. Those two really carried the show. I mean, everybody did a great job, but these two, like, their dynamic was especially strong. So I really enjoyed seeing those two perform as, formidable adversaries on screen together. That was awesome. I loved how spunky and fearless and how she just did not give a fuck about nothing when she was a nun, and then like when her descendant was almost of the same lineage, had the similar attitude and outlook. She was a perfect foe for Dracula, who always who usually went after like weaker specimens for food and for victims, and she just was not that, and I loved that about her. Plenty of awesome vampire carnage and intensity, some awesome creature and monster makeup, looks, and effect. There was no shortage of bloodlust in this miniseries. I also loved how they did a modern twist on the ending of the story of Dracula, with Lucy coming back to life and Jack Seward, being in love with her, and then she rises from the grave as a vampire, and Dracula's inevitable defeat, even though it wasn't a stake through the heart like I thought it would be, or sunlight. It was actually more of like her making him realize what his number one fear was, and that was of death. And he's like, well, if I'm going out on my own terms. So he drank her as one last victim, as one last hurrah, even though her blood was cleverly tainted. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but she used that to her advantage because she was a very smart, strategic woman. Overall, though, I mean, I just loved how I just really enjoyed Dracula as a character. This was the most sarcastic and probably the most sexual version we've ever seen of the character, which made him just that more of a delight to watch. I mean, he was such a condescending smartass in the Victorian era, and then jump ahead to the 21st century, he's just as much, if not slightly more so. And I also love just the exploring the mythology of the vampire legend and overall lore, and I just loved the additional vampires that were in this. I mean, they looked scary, very corpsey, but overall just very entertaining, just easy to watch, and it was easy to be amused by this particular mini series. And I thought everybody did a great job performance wise. Production value, my goodness, it really did look and feel like the Victorian age, and I loved this tone, this vibe of Victorian Gothic horror, and it carried very well throughout the first 2 episodes. And then the third episode, the final one, was predominantly spent in the modern day and age, and that was still pretty damn good. But in terms of like scares and horror, the third episode just didn't quite to feel it as much in terms of horror. But, it still had overall a pretty satisfying ending for the most part. At least I thought it did. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. When I first learned of this mini series or this limited series that was happening, I was very intrigued by the premise. I knew it wasn't based on Bela Lugosi's Dracula film from Universal. This project, I believe, was solely inspired by the original novel by the one and only Bram Stoker. And having read the book years ago, it was a pretty faithful adaptation, with the exception of the modern twist at the end, which I frankly really enjoyed. I really liked how they put the modern twist to the ending of the Dracula story, and I thought it played out rather well. Kind of threw me off at first, but I thought to myself, myself, wow, that's a twist. So he did eventually emerge from the water, but like a couple of centuries later. Cool. Yeah, but it was great though, especially the dynamic between Dracula and Van Helsing when she was both the nun and then the doctor in modern times. You know, those two on screen together was a huge delight, and she was equally sarcastic, a smartass, and just as funny as Dracula was. And having those two characters like match together energy wise and personality wise was what made them so dynamic and so fun to watch when they were on screen together. So those two really carried the limited series, at least for me. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this mini series as much as I did. What did you think of Dracula? I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions and your comments down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching. Dracula is now streaming on Netflix for your viewing pleasure. And if you guys enjoyed this, another show I would recommend is, I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard it's pretty good. It's called V-Wars, also on Netflix. Very vampire themed, obviously. I fully intend to check it out one of these days. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great rest of the day and weekend, and if I don't see you. And of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.